but when operating in hot and high regions, high altitudes, hot climates, it was found somewhat lacking, at least in its early versions, it must be said. And of course the British forces of that era were heavily engaged in a lot of those theatres. The first version, the HAR Mark I, was a rescue and communications helicopter for the Royal Navy, and that had a Pratt & Whitney Wasp radial piston engine. It was followed by the HAR II for the Royal Air Force with the same power plant, and those first RAF search and rescue whirlwinds began coming into service with number 22 Squadron at Thorney Island in February 1955. They were painted yellow, they were equipped with both a winch and a scoop net, and search and rescue detachments were set up around the UK, engaged in both service and civilian search and rescue. And here we see a demonstration of the Whirlwind's search and rescue role. As it performs a demonstration using the winch. A variety of different versions were produced, with efforts being made to increase engine power output. And this one has turboshaft as opposed to radial piston power from its Bristol Siddeley, or later Rolls-Royce Gnome turboshaft engine of about 1,050 shaft horsepower, which gives the Whirlwind a cruising speed in the region of 104, 105 miles an hour. So, coming past us slowly with the winch simulation ongoing. A Whirlwind HAR-10, the first of which flew in the spring of 1961. The Gnome engine gave the Whirlwind much greater utility than it had previously enjoyed. The engine is mounted in the helicopter's nose. As you can see, the cockpit is set very high above it. There were a few disadvantages to that, but it certainly gave good visibility when on the ground. And in some of the lighter moments of Whirlwind flying, it's said that more than one pilot had his shoelaces tied together by humorous, although I'm not sure the pilot would have seen it that way, crewmen sitting down below. About 400 Whirlwinds were built by Westland. They were used for troop transport, for anti-submarine warfare work in some of the Royal Navy's earlier efforts in that role with helicopters, and here as search and rescue platforms. There were also Whirlwinds used by the Queen's Flight for royal travel purposes. In the search and rescue role with the RAF, number 22 Squadron replaced its by then venerable Whirlwinds with the Westland Wessex. Number 202 Squadron was the last search and rescue operator of the type. They began to bring the Westland-built Sea King, another former Sikorsky product of the F-61, into service from 1978. The very last RAF Whirlwinds on search and rescue strength were those of the Search and Rescue Training Unit at RAF Valley on Anglesey. This one was originally built as an HAR-2 model, served with number 22 Squadron at St Morgan in Cornwall, was modified a few years later to Mark 10 standard. front. This machine served with number 202 Squadron thereafter, first at Leconfield, then went through several of the other bases where 202 had detachments, Lucas, Coltishall and Chibnall, and its last service was with the Search and Rescue Training Unit.
Yeah, but normally she sends us a messenger, and I know
I thought it'd be cat because everyone told
next weekend.
Wasn't retired by the RAF, this whirlwind, until 1981 when it became an instructional airframe with the Search and Rescue Engineering Wing at Finningley, now Doncaster Sheffield Airport. A faster pass with a wave from the crewman in the door. It's been through a couple of private hands, but now, as I said, owned by Andrew Whitehouse. And this is the first year it's been giving flying displays back on the UK circuit, and Andrew was at the controls today. Many thanks to him. A wonderfully distinctive machine. And nice to see historic helicopters playing a bit more of a role on the display circuit.